0344 499 1000 is the number. Let's talk to Andrew Allison from the Freedom Association, who's still not entirely happy with this government. Andrew, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Now, I know that the vaccine passports story has been exercising you quite a bit this week, as it has done for many of us. I believe, quite honestly, that the Boris Johnson kind of idea of that has taken a bit of a bashing over the course of this week, not just from us, but from an awful lot of people. And I wonder whether, aside from a few sporting events, basically they're going to forget about the idea altogether.
Well, we can only hope that that's what the government is thinking. Although the government does have a habit of saying it's not going to do something and then does something.
And then doing it,
different.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the concern. But even at major sporting events, I mean, this is going to be hugely impractical. You can imagine the queues trying to get in, can't you, at a major football match or a Formula One Grand Prix at Silverstone. I imagine there's going to be an enormous amount of disruption.
Well, also, nobody's quite explained to me yet, and unless you've heard differently, what exactly happens. I mean, I was looking at, for example, the Crucible for the snooker championships, where the BBC obviously televised that. They're going to let people in there, but they're all going to have to have shown that they've either had the vaccine or they've had some kind of negative test. Now, what happens when they go in? Do they then sit there watching the snooker with a mask on? Do the players play with a mask on? I just don't know.
Well, I don't think the players will be playing with a mask on, but I imagine that the people will be sitting there as spectators with masks on. I think that's probably likely to happen. Well, because it's an indoor setting, and I think this is what the government's trying to differentiate between an outdoor setting and an indoor setting. But what happens when at some of these major stadiums where they can close the roof? What happens then? What if the roof is closing? Does that then become an indoor setting?
Well, that's right. And also, I mean, I was listening to Julia's show this morning. She had a guest on who was saying, you know, if you go to Wembley or if you go to Lord's or even if you go to Wimbledon, you know, there are lots of parts of that experience which take place inside.
Yeah, well, yes, that's right. And it's all very confusing. I mean, the government keeps coming up with all these different policy announcements, and including this long-awaited traffic light scheme to allow us to go on holiday, and we know that they can move the goalposts immediately. They'll say that COVID spikes in that country are too high now, so they'll go from green to amber, or maybe even down to red. Yeah, and I can't see anyone having any faith in being able to book a holiday abroad this year.
Well, that's the trouble, isn't it? Because that's what we saw last year with places like France. I think we saw it in Portugal, where people had to suddenly dash home in order to avoid having to quarantine. And that will be the same all over again if that's what they do. But surely they've learned from that, don't you think?
You would hope so. But I don't have an enormous amount of faith. Right. I mean, Grant Shapps managed to get himself in Spain, didn't he, for a holiday last year? And then the government changed its policy, but didn't seem to tell the transport secretary.
No, didn't bother telling him, which tells you quite a lot about the way that policy is actually made on the hoof with these guys. But yeah, I mean, I do get the sense, Andrew, though, that we as freedom fighters are kind of on the winning side at the moment, because we're getting somewhere as of Monday, and I think that might lead to more speedy kind of lifting of other parts of the economy, because they'll see, as they've said, that there isn't really any problem. You know, since the children went back to school just before Easter, there doesn't appear to have been any kind of spike in disease and in infection.
There hasn't, and that's extremely good news. And of course, many of us have been pressurising the government, including lots of senior Conservative MPs. Even the Lib Dems have come out against all of this. Labour, I don't know where Labour is. Sometimes I think it's going to oppose vaccine passports. Other times, I'm not quite so sure.
Well, I don't think they are either, Andrew. I don't think you're alone in that.
Well, no, I don't think that I am. And I read a story in the Telegraph this morning, which is saying that when the pubs or beer gardens reopen on Monday, all staff will be able to, by law, check someone's phone to make sure that they are who they say they are, that they are registered with Test and Trace. Otherwise, they'll have to take their details down. Yeah. And this is for having a beer.
I don't see that happening, though, Andrew. I mean, you know as well as I do, there are plenty of pubs where some might want to do that, but there are also going to be plenty of pubs where they won't be bothering.
True, and there'll also be plenty of pubs, of course, that will not open because they don't have any outside space, or the outside space is so small that it's just not worth them opening. So, I mean, they're looking forward to the 17th of May.
Right, that's the thing. I mean, again, because we've seen in the past the way that these things have been rolled out, you know, I mean, I'm sure you did as much as I did go to restaurants where you had a table for four, one person gave their details, but the other three didn't. And despite what the government may say, I don't think they've got enough inspectors or jobs worths from the local councils to come around nosing about into every single hostelry to make sure that absolutely everybody has given a name and a number. And even if they have been giving a name and a number, there's no guarantee that it's the right name or the right number.
No, there isn't. And councils certainly don't have enough COVID marshals to do that sort of thing. What they're expecting is for businesses to do it.
But businesses won't do it.
Well, I don't think they can even afford to do it, Mike.
Right.
I mean, they've been closed for months and months. I think I've said before on your show that the pubs where I live in East Yorkshire have been closed since the 4th of November. Right. They haven't opened.
They weren't open in December at all.
No, they weren't open in December at all. So, I mean, they've got additional staff on to do table service. I mean, where are they going to be able to afford to get all this additional staff on to monitor the doors?
Yeah, well, exactly right. And also, you don't want to create problems. If you're running a business, you are there to collect as much money as you can possibly collect over the course of time. You've taken reservations from people. You've probably taken their details when they reserved a table, as far as I'm aware. But there is absolutely nothing that can make you tell someone that they must give you their real name and their real address, or they must have a QR code. You know, people will just start turning up without phones, won't they?
Well, of course they will. I mean, I am not registered for Test and Trace. I'm quite happy to give my details if I'm asked to do that. I will, as a law-abiding citizen, I will give my true details.
Yeah.
But I'm sure some people might just write down Donald Duck.
Yeah. Well, some people have and do.
Possible.
Well, and they do, and it's not then down to the owners of the restaurant or the people that work there to put themselves in a difficult position by challenging people, because that could lead to a problem.
Of course, it could. It could lead to assault, so no. I hope the government doesn't even try to force this through.
Yeah.
And I certainly hope that it doesn't bring any form of COVID passport in. I don't even think for larger sporting events, because I just can't see it working.
Well, I don't see the point, to be honest, because it's all very well, as I've said many times this week on the show, you know, you might go into a football stadium and you think to yourself, I'm very safe here because I've been sitting next to a guy who's been showing me his COVID-free certificate that he's got, that he hasn't got COVID, but then he punches me in the face because his team lose. You know, that's life, isn't it? You know, I mean, you can't really protect people in a football stadium from what might happen to them.
No, you can't. And that's the thing. And of course, I'm sure that as soon as these COVID passports, if they ever do come out, the forgers will be there producing some highly effective ones.
Right. Where do you stand, Andrew? Where do you stand on the conversation that some have been having, which is that maybe once we get past this initial period of April the 12th, before we get into May, that some offers will be made to hospitality to say that, look, you can have everything back the way it was. You can sit everybody next to each other. You can have as many people at the bar as you want, but then you do have to have some kind of vaccine passport. I'm not sure they'd want to do that, but some say that they would on the basis that they can make more money.
I can't see many wanting to do that. I mean, of course, I believe in private property rights. Businesses should be able to run their businesses any way that they see fit.
Right.
But I can't understand why a pub or a restaurant would want to do that. It doesn't sound like a very jolly place, does it?
It doesn't really, no.
I think I'll be around the place that's a bit more flexible.
Full of what can only be described as smug marrieds. You know, they're all standing around sort of polishing their medals and telling everybody how great they are and how wonderfully sort of public-spirited they are. But it's not very good for business.
No, it's not very good for business. And if you think about it, many people who have supported lockdown are the ones who've had it very easy.
Yeah.
People, you know, a lot of retired people have supported it because they get their pension anywhere. They maybe live in a nice house with a nice garden, and life's all very good for them. But it's just not very good for everybody else, and it's certainly not good for businesses those people who work in those businesses.
Well, you'll know people, I'm sure, who run hospitality outlets, either pubs or restaurants, who have actually spent hundreds of thousands of pounds of their own money, because they are, luckily enough, businessmen of long standing and businesswomen of long standing. But some have gone bust. Some will never reopen because they simply haven't had the reserves to continue to keep paying the national insurance, to keep paying the rents, to keep paying all of the bills that have been accruing, despite the fact that they haven't been able to make any money.
Yeah, businesses have spent a fortune becoming, in inverted commas, COVID secure. And it really was a lot of money. And to reopen, they couldn't really make a lot of money because of the social distancing inside their premises. They spent all of that money, and then the government closed them down again.
Yeah,
and you're right. There's many businesses that are not going to reopen. I know of one very nice restaurant in Beverley, where the waiter didn't think the restaurant would reopen after a month's lockdown, and we're now sort of 5-6 months on.
Right.
So I do fear for those businesses, and of course for the people who work or used to work in those businesses, who've still got rent or mortgages to pay, still have to put food on the table, still have to live.
Yeah.
They're the people who I really feel sorry for too.
Absolutely. Well, Andrew, we shall be raising a glass to you on Monday, so hopefully you'll be in a position to raise one back for wherever you are, and we'll speak to you hopefully on the other side. Andrew Allison there from the Freedom Association telling us that he's uneasy about this idea that vaccine passports are the way forward, even for sporting events and even for big concerts. I'm not sure that he's wrong. In fact, I think he's right, because I think the way that we want to go in this country is not to try and guarantee that everybody's safe, because you can't do it anyway. And also, the way that they want to try and organise some kind of app for people is way far away from the point at which we are at now. There's no way that they can actually get an app together in time to make sure that it works. It's simply not going to happen. 0344 499 1000. Don't forget